Malika sat beside her, not speaking right away. She allowed the silence to settle, sensing the turmoil that gripped Amina's soul. Finally, she spoke. "You must know this, Amina," Malika said softly. "You are not the only one who suffers. You have made a choice, and that choice will bring consequences, yes, but you are not alone in this." Amina looked at Malika, her tear-filled eyes filled with confusion. "I don't understand. Kofi, he has betrayed me, Malika. How can I go on?" Malika placed a hand on Amina's shoulder, her voice steady. "It is not just about Kofi's betrayal, Amina. This is about your journey, about the path you must walk, not just for yourself, but for your kingdom. The gods have placed this trial before you for a reason." Amina's chest tightened. She stood abruptly, her hands trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "I cannot serve the goddess anymore. I cannot return to the temple, knowing that my heart is in pieces, knowing that the man I loved has chosen another. I can't do it, Malika. I can't." Malika rose and stood before Amina, her expression hardening with resolve. "You must, Amina. The goddess chose you for this life. You were born to be the protector of her wisdom, the keeper of the people's faith. Your journey is far from over, but it is also a test, one that you must pass, not just for your heart, but for the future of your kingdom." Amina felt a rush of frustration rise within her. What if I don't want this anymore? What if I want to live for myself, to have the love I've always dreamed of, and not the one that has been forced upon me? Malika's voice softened. "Amina, the love you speak of, the kind you feel for Kofi, is beautiful, but it is not the only love that matters. There is a greater love, a love that transcends personal desires, and it is that love that will guide you through the hardest trials. The path you are on will not be easy, but it will bring you closer to the understanding of your purpose, and perhaps one day you will find the peace you seek." Amina swallowed hard, the weight of Malika's words settling heavily on her heart. She had never considered that the love she had for Kofi could be just a part of something much larger, something that the gods had planned for her all along. Could she trust the goddess's will, even now, when it seemed that everything she had fought for was slipping through her fingers? Malika continued, her voice now steady with conviction. "You are the high priestess, Amina. The choice you made to love Kofi was yours, but now you must make another choice. You must decide if your heart belongs to the goddess, to the kingdom, and to your people. You cannot serve both love and duty. One must be chosen." Amina turned away from Malika, her eyes staring out into the moonlit night. The pain inside her was sharp, unbearable, but as she looked into the distance, something inside her began to shift. The path before her was uncertain, filled with both peril and promise, but she had made a vow, and the goddess had entrusted her with a great responsibility. "I have no choice, do I?" Amina whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. "No, you do not," Malika replied softly. "But know this, Amina. Love comes in many forms. The love you once sought may not be the love that is meant for you. There is still a greater love waiting, a love that will fulfill the purpose you were born to serve." Amina closed her eyes, her hands clenched in resolve. She would honor her duty. She would follow the goddess's will, no matter the cost, even if it meant sacrificing her heart forever. The days following her conversation with Malika were some of the most difficult Amina had ever faced. Each morning, the sunlight seemed dimmer, and the weight of her decision pressed on her chest with every breath. The temple, once a sanctuary of peace, now felt like a cage. Yet, in the solitude of her chambers, she found a strange sense of clarity. She had made her choice. She would follow the goddess's will, no matter what it cost her. But even as she stood firm in her resolve, the thought of Kofi, the man she had once believed to be her true love, lingered in her mind like a bitter memory. She could no longer picture a future with him, yet the heartache of letting go felt unbearable. How could she forget the promises they had made to one another? How could she erase the love that had once filled her with such hope? Despite the quiet resolve within her, Amina found it difficult to focus on her duties. She had lost herself in the whirlwind of her emotions, and it felt as if her heart were constantly torn between the past and the present. It was only when she was summoned to the Council of Elders that she realized just how much the kingdom was depending on her. The elders gathered in the sacred hall, their faces grave, as they discussed the matters of the kingdom. The unrest in the land was growing, and Amina knew that her role in guiding the kingdom was more crucial now than ever before. The goddess had chosen her for a reason. She had a purpose beyond her personal struggles, a responsibility to her people that could not be ignored. Amina, Elder Nia spoke, her voice filled with authority. We have come to a crossroads. The kingdom is at war with a neighboring land. Our warriors are ready, but we need your wisdom. Your foresight will guide us. Amina stood before the council, her mind still clouded with the pain of her broken heart. But as she looked into the eyes of the elders, she knew that she had a greater responsibility. The people depended on her, and this was her duty. I will do what is necessary, Amina said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. I will guide you as the goddess commands. Elder Nia nodded, a look of approval on her face. We trust you, Amina. You have the heart and the wisdom to lead us through these troubled times. But know this, the gods will test you, and it is through these trials that you will find your true purpose. As Amina left the council hall, she felt a sense of weighty finality. She had chosen her path. No longer would she allow herself to be consumed by her love for Kofi. She had been given the chance to serve something greater than herself, something that demanded every ounce of her being. Days turned into weeks, and Amina worked tirelessly to prepare the kingdom for the coming battle. Her visions of the future guided her actions, allowing her to see the enemy's movements and counter them before they could strike. The people revered her, not only for her wisdom, but also for her unwavering commitment to the kingdom's well-being. But despite her outward strength, the pain in her heart never truly went away. Late at night, as she stood before the goddess's statue, her hands clasped in prayer, the image of Kofi would return to her. She could see his face clearly, his eyes filled with longing, the same eyes that had once made her feel as though nothing in the world could stand between them. One evening, as she stood in the sacred garden, trying to clear her mind, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Amina froze, her heart leaping into her throat. She turned slowly, and there, standing in the moonlight, was Kofi. His armor was worn, his face battle-hardened, but the love in his eyes was unmistakable. Amina, Kofi whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I have returned, as I promised. I could not leave things as they were. I have come to see you, to explain. Amina felt a pang in her chest, a mixture of grief and anger rising within her. You have no right to be here, Kofi, she said, her voice cold. You have chosen another. You have moved on. Kofi shook his head, stepping closer to her. No, Amina, you misunderstand. I did not move on. I never could. But the pressure of my people, my duty, it forced me to make choices I did not want to make. I never stopped loving you. Amina took a step back, her eyes narrowing. Then why, Kofi? Why did you allow yourself to fall into another's arms? Why did you betray me? The pain in Kofi's eyes was evident, but his voice was firm. I did not betray you. I was lost, confused. I thought that my duty to my kingdom would make me forget you, but it was impossible. Amina, you are the one I have always loved. Her heart ached as his words reached her, but she knew she could not allow herself to be swayed. She had made a choice, and no matter how painful it was, she could not go back. The kingdom needed her, the people needed her, and so did the goddess. Amina, Kofi said, his voice breaking, please, let me prove my love to you. Let me show you that I can be the man you deserve. But Amina's resolve was unshakable. No, Kofi, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I cannot. You have chosen your path, and I have chosen mine. My duty comes first. You and I, we are no longer meant to be. With those words, she turned away from him, feeling the weight of her decision settle within her soul. She had done what she believed was right, what she had to do, but it did not make the loss any easier. Kofi's voice called out to her, but she did not turn back. As she walked away, she could feel the heartache that had once consumed her slowly begin to fade, replaced by something stronger, a sense of purpose that she could not ignore. The days that followed Kofi's departure were some of the hardest Amina had ever faced. She threw herself into her duties, but no matter how hard she worked, the pain of his words and the emptiness of his absence clung to her like a shadow she couldn't escape. She had made her decision, but the weight of that decision pressed on her with every passing day. As the kingdom's preparations for battle continued, Amina found herself standing before the temple's ancient altar, the cool marble of the statue of Arun beneath her hands. The goddess's gaze, serene and unyielding, seemed to watch over her, but Amina could not escape the questions that lingered in her mind. Had she truly made the right choice? Was this the path the goddess had intended for her? Amina's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. She turned and saw Malika, her face calm, but her eyes filled with concern. "Amina," Malika said gently, "I know this is not easy for you, but you must continue on your path. The kingdom depends on you." Amina looked down, her heart heavy with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can, Malika. Every night I dream of Kofi. I see him, and I wonder if I made the right choice. Was I meant to follow this path, or was I just running from what I truly wanted?" Malika stepped closer, her voice full of wisdom. "Amina, your heart is torn because you are human. You love, you feel, and that is what makes you who you are. But the duty you have taken on is greater than your personal desires. The gods have chosen you for this moment, and your choice will shape not only your future, but the future of this kingdom." Amina swallowed hard, the truth of Malika's words sinking in. She knew that she had chosen her duty over her heart, but there was still a lingering doubt. The life she had known was slipping away, and in its place was a future she had never imagined, one filled with responsibility, sacrifice, and the weight of an entire kingdom on her shoulders. "I understand," Amina said, her voice tight, "but it doesn't make it any easier." Malika nodded, understanding the depth of Amina's pain. "No, it never will. But you must remember that love is not the only thing that matters. You have a greater calling, Amina. The gods have placed their trust in you, and it is time for you to step into the role that has been set before you." Amina's eyes moved back to the goddess's statue, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace settle within her. She had made her choice, and there was no turning back. The future she had once dreamed of had slipped away, but in its place, she had something far greater, a duty to her people, and a responsibility that could not be ignored. As she left the temple that night, a sense of finality washed over her. The kingdom was on the brink of war, and it was her wisdom and foresight that would guide them through the coming battle. She could no longer afford to dwell on the past. She had to look forward, to the future, to the people who depended on her. The next few weeks were filled with preparations. Amina worked tirelessly with the council and the generals, using her visions to guide their strategies. She could see the enemy's movements before they took place, and her counsel proved invaluable. The kingdom's defenses were ready, and the warriors stood strong, knowing that they had Amina's guidance to lead them. But even as the kingdom prepared for war, the shadows of Amina's past crept into her thoughts. She could not forget Kofi, the love that she had lost, the promise he had made to wait for her. It seemed like a lifetime ago that they had shared their dreams of the future, but now those dreams felt like an illusion, one that had been shattered by the weight of duty. One evening, as Amina stood atop the temple's highest tower, gazing out over the kingdom, she felt a familiar presence behind her. She turned and saw Kofi standing there, his expression unreadable. "Amina," he said softly, "I've come to say goodbye." Amina's heart skipped a beat, but she quickly regained her composure. "Kofi," she said, her voice steady, "you shouldn't be here. You've made your choice." Kofi stepped closer, his eyes filled with the same love that had once consumed them both. I know I made a mistake, Amina, but I cannot live with the thought of never seeing you again. Please, let me be a part of your life. I'm not asking you to choose me over your duty. I only ask that you allow me to stand by your side, as I have always wanted to. Amina felt the pull of his words, the ache in her heart threatening to undo everything she had worked for. She wanted to give in, to run into his arms and forget about the kingdom, the war, and the goddess's will. But she knew that she could not. She had chosen her path, and there was no turning back. Kofi, she whispered, her voice breaking, you and I are from two different worlds. You belong to your kingdom, and I belong to mine. The choice I made was not easy, but it is the right one. I cannot be the woman I was meant to be if I follow my heart. The kingdom needs me. Kofi stood silent for a moment, his face filled with pain and regret. He nodded, as though accepting the truth that Amina had already known. I understand, he said quietly. I will leave, Amina, but know this. I will always love you, and if the day comes when you need me, I will be here. Amina's heart shattered at his words, but she knew that there was no other way. She had made her choice, and it was the only path she could walk. With one last lingering glance, Kofi turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. Amina stood there, watching him go, feeling the weight of her decision settle once again in the pit of her stomach. Her heart was broken, but her duty remained. The battle was near, and the kingdom needed its high priestess to lead them. She had chosen this path, and now she had to walk it alone. The air was thick with the tension of war. The days seemed to stretch endlessly as Amina stood at the heart of the temple, preparing her people for the final battle. The once serene grounds of the sacred sanctuary now hummed with urgency and anticipation. Warriors lined up for battle, while the elders whispered prayers and invoked the god's favor. The goddess Arun's statue, standing tall and unyielding, seemed to watch over them all, her presence both a source of comfort and a reminder of the sacrifice Amina had made. Amina had found peace in her decision. Though her heart still ached with the memory of Kofi's departure, she knew that she had made the right choice. The kingdom depended on her. The goddess's will was clear, and she had chosen her duty above all else. But as the sun dipped low on the horizon, Amina knew that the time for talking, for preparing, was over. The kingdom was about to face its greatest challenge, and she had to lead them into battle. With a deep breath, she stood tall in the war room, surrounded by the generals and the council. Her role as high priestess had always been one of spiritual guidance, but now it had evolved into something much more. She was the kingdom's protector, the one whose foresight would determine the fate of her people. Amina, Elder Nia spoke, her voice filled with a deep reverence. We are ready. The warriors await your command. Amina nodded, her gaze sweeping over the council. Every face was filled with resolve, every heart committed to the cause. She could feel the weight of their trust pressing down on her. This was the moment where her choices would either save or destroy them all. She stood before the council, raising her hands high, her voice echoing through the room as she spoke words of strength and determination. Warriors of our kingdom, she began, the time has come to face our enemies. The gods have blessed us with wisdom, and it is through this wisdom that we will triumph. We fight not only for ourselves, but for our children, our future, and the very heart of our land. May Arun guide us in this battle, and may our courage be as unyielding as the stone beneath our feet. Her words were met with a resounding cheer. The warriors, filled with renewed strength, marched to their positions, ready to face whatever awaited them. But as Amina watched them leave, her mind returned to Kofi. Where is he now? What is he fighting for? The thought was fleeting. She could not afford to let it consume her. She had chosen the kingdom, and that was where her heart must remain. But deep inside, there was a part of her that wondered if Kofi was out there, somewhere on the battlefield, fighting with the same courage and determination that she had found in herself. The battle raged on through the night. The sound of clashing swords and the cries of warriors filled the air as the two armies met in the fields outside the kingdom's borders. Amina remained in the temple, her mind focused on the visions she had seen, the movements of the enemy, their weaknesses, and their strengths. She guided her warriors from afar, her words of wisdom sending them to strategic positions. Her foresight proved invaluable as she predicted the enemy's next moves, helping her forces gain the upper hand. But despite the strategy and the divine guidance, the battle was fierce. It was a struggle that tested everyone's resolve. The warriors fought valiantly, but there were casualties, many lives lost on both sides. Amina could feel the sorrow of each fallen soul, the pain of families losing loved ones, and the weight of every decision she had made. As dawn broke, Amina stood before the goddess's statue, her heart heavy with grief. The battle was won, but at a great cost. She had fulfilled her duty, but the sacrifice had been immense. She had lost so much, her love, her dreams, and her innocence. Yet she knew that this was the path she was meant to walk. The kingdom was safe, the enemy defeated, and the people could now begin to rebuild. But there was no joy in her victory. She had saved her people, but at what price? Her heart was still broken, the pain of Kofi's absence gnawing at her with every breath. He was gone, and he would never return. The love that had once burned so brightly between them was now nothing more than a distant memory, a ghost she would carry with her forever. Amina stood in the temple, her eyes closed as she reached out to the goddess in prayer. The weight of her choices was heavy, but she knew that they had been necessary. The kingdom had needed her, and she had answered the call. Yet, as the sun rose over the kingdom, Amina understood something deeper. Her duty to her people was her destiny, but it did not mean that she had to forsake her own heart. She had sacrificed much, but she was still whole. She was still a woman with dreams, with desires, and with a purpose beyond the kingdom's borders. "I have done as you asked, Arun," Amina whispered, her voice filled with both sorrow and resolve. "But I also ask for your guidance in the days to come. I have walked this path of sacrifice, but now I seek peace, peace for my heart, for my soul." As the winds blew gently through the temple, Amina felt a shift within her. The goddess's presence was strong, comforting. She had made her choices, and now it was time to heal. The kingdom had been saved, but now Amina had to save herself. She had given everything for her duty, but it was time to rebuild her life, piece by piece.